Each and every Tuesday, we'd like to take you back in time and check out some history from our own area and our own backyard. We do that with History Out There and Harold Peacock. Good morning, mate.
Yes, good morning, Damo. There's always a mystery happening somewhere in our backyard, isn't there?
There certainly is, and this one is very mysterious because it's about a death in Goondiwindi during the 1917 federal election that has never been explained until now, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we certainly posed some questions, so maybe the listeners might be able to give us some ideas, because it happened 109 years ago last week on the 22nd of April, 1917. In fact, the Queensland's Commissioner for Public Health, Dr. John Moore, was in Goondiwindi at the time. He'd come out from Brisbane to investigate a mysterious disease in Goondiwindi that had claimed a number of lives.
Right.
But of course, he insisted that there was no cause for alarm. You know, why worry when the top health guy comes to town and there's people dying? But anyway, Dr. Moore, he'd later visit Ireland, where he himself contracted a mysterious illness from which he never recovered. Now, the unexplained death that I'm questioning here is that of Mrs. Mary Teresa Bushell. Now, she was 73 years of age when on a Sunday morning she was found dead in a bedroom floor by her son Victor.
Oh.
Now, Mrs. Bushell had blood all over her face and head. She'd in fact suffered a compound fracture of the jaw and other external injuries. And strange to say, she'd attended a political meeting the night before. Now, the police remained silent as they reportedly thoroughly investigated the matter. Detective Senior Sergeant Thomas Head came from Toowoomba to lead the investigation. Now, he'd later be attached to the retinue that accompanied the Prince of Wales, who was the future King Edward VIII, on his royal visit across Australia. Detective Head insisted nothing about Mrs. Bushell's death was suspicious.
Wow.
But still, relatives of Mrs. Bushell demanded a post-mortem. Now, Mrs. Bushell's husband ran the Royal Hotel at Goondiwindi until his death after just 1 year. Mrs. Bushell then took over the business, in which she continued in the hotel trade for the rest of her life. Her father-in-law was a transported convict from Warwickshire, England.
Right.
Her business ventures included the hotels, the Royal Hotel and the Queensland Hotel, as well as running coaches and mail contracts. She was quite an entrepreneur around Goondiwindi.
Yeah.
Now, one son, Victor, he was a well-known jockey and horse trainer. Another son, Walter, or better known as Perry, he was a Goondiwindi alderman and would become the oldest registered horse trainer in Queensland. But Mrs. Bushell's life also had its fair share of tragedy and, dare I say, strange deaths. You see, her son, Walter, and a grandson died in quick succession and were actually buried on the same day. Another son, Joseph, suffered a particularly long and painful death, while a grandson, Leslie, was 16 when he was struck and killed by lightning, dying instantly.
Wow.
Now, of course, the death of Mrs. Bushell herself, like I said, was mysterious and unexplained. She was found dead on the floor of her bedroom at Goondiwindi. She had attended a political meeting the previous night. The funeral was delayed so that her oldest son, Walter, could attend. The family demanded a post-mortem examination, which was carried out on the morning of the funeral, which is really unusual. And she had suffered a compound fracture of the jaw and other injuries that you could see. And of course, that only cast more doubt on the cause of death, because how could violent injuries like that have happened from a simple fall in the bedroom?
Yeah.
Which, effectively, that's what the police were saying, because still, Detective Senior Sergeant Head, he said there was nothing to see here. Now, this all happened in the lead-up to the explosive 1917 federal election. The Queensland Premier, T.J. Ryan, was heckled when he spoke in Goondiwindi that same week that Mrs. Bushell was killed. And the federal election was run and won just weeks later, 2 weeks later, in fact. It was won by the Prime Minister, Billy Hughes.
Right.
Now, we out in the Darling Downs, we know that just a few months later that year, 1917, during the campaigning for the second referendum for the introduction of conscription during the First World War, the Prime Minister stepped onto the platform at the Warwick railway station and into the midst of a howling mob of protesters. It was alleged that the Queensland police then did little to quell the mob. An egg was thrown at the Prime Minister, and that egg went into folklore as the egg that founded the Australian Federal Police.
Oh.
But in all this explosive atmosphere and police investigation and possible police inaction, the unexplained death of Mrs. Bushell that happened at the same pressure cooker environment, it was never satisfactorily investigated. In fact, it was whitewashed. There was no corroding inquest, and she was never even thought of since then. So it's a mysterious, unexplained death that perhaps got overwhelmed by the political environment at that time. But if any listeners out there have any family stories about what really happened to Mrs. Bushell, I'd love to hear it.
There you go. And we'd love to hear it too, because we want to know what actually happened.
That's right. Like, there's no way she'd have an accidental fall and have that amount of injuries that the police said, and the family certainly were never satisfied at the time.
No, something's smelling like fish to me, that's for sure. So
yeah, that's right. The police thinking, we got better things to do, and it's it was a busy time, 1917, with the war was on, and of course the political environment was pretty highly charged.
Yeah, well, mate, another great yarn. And of course, if people do have any answers for us on that story, or maybe they've got their own story they'd like to get investigated too, hey.
Absolutely, I would love to look into. Look, we do get leads and questions from listeners. I would love to look into any questions that people have, and with the research tools available now, we can often find out some pretty interesting answers. You never know.
Exactly. Jump on to historyouthere.com, .au as well, or?
No, just .com. Historyouthere.com.
You think I get it right after all of these years?
It's a global
That's
site.
right.
We share it around, share the love.
Historyouthere.com, and you can jump on there. You can also contact Harold through that website as well, just to let him know that you've got a story that you'd like followed up. But you can also listen back to all of those stories, can't you, Harold?
Yes, that's right. I post the recording you kindly do, as well as the textual story and some great photos of the people involved too. I post them later in the week, typically on Fridays. So if you go to the website, you can see it then.
All right, historyouthere.com. Mate, thank you so much for that, and we'll look forward to chatting again next week.
Great. See you then.